All right, so let's just do a real quick review of reading, just because I find it's always useful to kind of remember what we've done. This concept of reading is all about getting the minimal amount of information for the maximum amount of points in the shortest period of time. Okay? You only need the specific, whatever it takes to answer that question in the shortest period of time to get you the most points. Just that's all you need to do. This is not for pleasure. There's nothing pleasure about writing these passages. They're not good writing. They're generally not interesting. They might be an interesting topic, but then once you start reading it, it loses it. So it all comes down to being able to filter for the most important pieces of information, right? That's that concept of filtering. That's what we're looking for. We talked about the difference between skimming and scanning. So when I'm skimming, I'm trying to get an overall view for something. That's that filtering concept. And I use that term filter just because the coffee filter, you hang on to the good stuff comes out. And when you scan, you're seeking something specific. So two great skills that you need to develop to go through school and life. And you should really, think, hey, I've got to maximize that ability in what I do. Now, on the test, you're going to skim or filter the passage so you have a general idea of what it's about. While you're reading, you can make notes. Bo, you had asked the question, is the test booklet yours? I did respond, but I don't know if you saw it. So yes, the test booklet it's yours to use during the day, and then you can pay extra money to buy what you've already bought, right? Because you already bought the test, and then if you want that test sent home to you, you get to pay for it again. The College Board is brilliant at making you buy the same thing a couple of times. Then they'll sell you a book of old SATs of the test that you took. So they can make you buy the same test 3 times and you guys are happy about it each time. That's what's known as sheep. So we go through and we're going to have this test booklet that I get to mark up and do anything I want, but I have to turn that in. You can't tear it up. You can't deface it. There used to be in the old days, the Scantrons have little marks, and on geometry problems, we would take the marks and we would use that as a ruler. They're really good. And then they changed that, so it doesn't work anymore. But that test booklet is yours to use. So I would highlight it, mark it, do all your figuring and calculating in there, but just know that you got to turn both of those in. So just keep that in mind, whatever you write down. If you want to write how wonderful you think I am all over that, please. I don't think they've ever seen it, and I probably don't think they'll ever see it. So there you go. I got that going for me. Then when we go to the specific types of problems, right, you have to answer this a little bit differently based on what you're looking for. There is no order of difficulty on the reading. Because there's no order of difficulty, we're pretty limited in terms of how we go about finding things. So you then have to assess, and I use a complexity scale. And it's a complexity scale that, right, I've developed on my own based on just what I do. As I read through, I go, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so that's going to be a little easier. I go through and I read it and I go, oh my God, I have no clue what they're saying. You read it again and you're even more confused. All right, probably that's going to be a harder one, right? And so if something just jumps out at you on that super complex one, probably it was an obvious answer choice that was wrong. And then again, with the reading, we're not looking for the correct answer because there is no correct answer. We're looking for the best answer. But it allows you to cross off certain things that are not there. The golden rule is justify your answer. Whatever it is that you're going to do, just have a justification for your answer. If you can justify it, I don't care what it is that you selected. You had a specific thought process and you went through it. To take this test without a decision-making process, who knows what your score is going to be. And I don't like that. What I like is that when you start off taking the test, there's this big variance. So this could be your high score and this could be your low score. And then each week and each session that you go with me, we narrow that window so that we kind of know within reason what your score is going to be, because we're kind of pushing you into this thing. Now, if you notice, the high score may have come down, but you also run the risk of having an incredibly low score. And that was only based on haphazard random guessing. I have literally seen kids guess their way to a 1300 or 1350, and then the very next test get a 950. And I go, what did you do different? They go, I don't know, I just guessed. But those were on practice tests. When you get to the real thing, you may not be so lucky. So what's better is that you narrow down this thing. So this is what's known as amplitude. That difference between the high score and the low score is very low, so that when you go to take a test, you know, yeah, I'm probably getting, is all my practice and I've gone through and I've done everything I need to do, I'm probably getting a 1200. I'm probably getting a 1250. I'm probably getting an 1100. Whatever number you come up with, it doesn't make any difference. But know with great certainty that you're going to be kind of bracketed between this normal high and low. And if you do get a couple great guesses, terrific. Your score is going to go higher. Bad things happen too, though, when you have a lot of guessing, because you can score lower. So we want to take all that out, reduce that. And that justification and going through that process really does that. I don't think we went through question types last time, but let me just run them through very quickly. There'll be questions about the passage as a whole. And the idea of a passage as a whole, they're asking about the tone, the main idea. You really don't need to read every line in order to get this. But you do have to read enough of the passage to understand what it was about. And these are really easy questions, but they're hard for people who refuse to read the passage. Because some people just say, yep, I'm just going to go ahead and read the questions and go from there. Well, if that's the case, then you run the risk of missing easy ones. Specific details, I think I did go through this now that I remember. This is asking about a specific line. So if it says line 10 to 13, so a general rule of thumb, read 5 lines before and 5 lines after, and you have the context. But you'll see that that's a lot of waste. So if something's at the end of a paragraph, you probably don't need to read 5 lines after, because there's a new thought. If something's at the beginning of a paragraph, you probably don't need to read 5 lines before, because it was a new thought. I would definitely read at least 1 or 2. If something's smack dab in the middle of a passage, yeah, you probably got to go at least 3 to 5 lines before and at least 3 to 5 lines after. And then the beloved vocabulary and context questions, right? It's not straightforward vocabulary. It's going to be contextual vocabulary, which is almost always different than what you would think, right? Because you want to say, hey, this is going to be this way, but it's just not. All right. Your homework then would be that I really want you to take a look at another SAT. I do have a PSAT here. We can do some more practice problems next Tuesday, because I think that's our last class, because you guys take the test on Wednesday. Yay. So we can do some practice problems next week and kind of go through and show you what I would do and how I would go about doing it and my justification. And starting from tonight would be the time where you want to start thinking about going to bed 5 minutes early, 10 minutes early tonight. Tomorrow night, another 5 or 10 on top of that. And on top of that, on Sunday, another 10 or 15. And what you're doing is you're trying to get yourself to be able to go to bed by Tuesday night, a whole hour early. Because if you just go to bed an hour early on Tuesday night, that's better than nothing. But I know how sleep deprived you people are. That's the general operating procedure of a teenager and middle-aged men. We just don't get enough sleep. Because there's so many other cool things to get ourselves into, and we're totally overstimulated and our brains don't slow down. Middle-aged women, turns 8 o'clock, starting to get tired, it's going right to bed. So that's kind of the way you want to be. You want to be thinking about that process over this course of this next week, is start shaving a little bit of time each day. And don't do it a lot because, like I said, you'll be wide awake, 3 o'clock in the morning. It's not going to do any good for anyone. The other thing, by trying to go to bed before you get tired, I've learned that you don't wake up tired. I have no scientific data to back that up, but that is what students have been telling me for the last 30 years, right? And I've done it too. Before you're dragging yourself to bed, when you wake up, if you got to wake up on a regular time basis, you don't get to sleep till 11 or 12, then you're going to wake up tired. So go to bed right before you get tired and you seem to be okay. All right. Now let's go to the next section. That's the live class. I'm guessing that Claire Robke is not here again. Child is totally dead to me. All right. Yeah, no, thank you for telling me. I actually, because I am JV football coach, I was supposed to be there tonight and I had to find a substitute for you people. That's my commitment to you. And the fact that they canceled the JV football program this year and that I was just going to be working the chain gang on the side. And it's cold and it's a little rainy, so I was kind of okay. So anyway, yeah, but my commitment's really to you guys. So let's go to the grammar section. Please. Does everyone have that link? If not, I know I'll have a Miss Helper or Mr. Helper that will put it in the chat for me. Please, please, please. Who's going to be my first helper? Come on, it's a race. Oh, Noah. Thanks, bud. Love you, pal. Okay. So if you didn't have that link, you got it now. And you see this lovely picture of a handwriting. Don't ask me where I get these stupid pictures. I actually am now starting to decide I'm going to look for the dumbest ones possible just to elicit a response, right? You're bored. You might as well get something funny from this. Okay. So, what the grammar is, it says that if you weren't, this test makes you feel as if you weren't paying attention. So in math, we do the math and like some of the problems are easy, but you can kind of look and you go, man, I don't know. That's just hard. I don't get it. Okay. So we can rationalize that one. And then in the reading, there's always that obvious answer that makes us feel, we get that warm fuzzy. And so whether you're right or wrong, they always have an answer that seems right and people will pick it. I've asked students again for decades, hey, how did you think you did? Oh, on the reading, I think I got them all right. Well, sure, because they put in something that always made you feel right. The grammar is so frustrating because you can look and you can say everything seems wrong or nothing seems wrong. And I will look at the problems myself and I go, okay, hold on, let's break this down. And even though I'm an English teacher, I still look and figure out like, hey, this is going to be tough. And for all those that you had Gannon is really good with grammar. She even sometimes says they're tough. And I have no idea what Patterson's like for grammar. Jake, how's grammar? I would imagine it's got to be top notch, right? No? Okay. Fair enough. If I was your English teacher and we came to some really difficult grammar, I have a beautiful scenario. And the reason this scenario works so well is because when you write essays, it's what you need to do. If you're confused, rewrite it so it's no longer a grammar issue. That's ingenious. Unfortunately, you don't get that privilege on the SAT. We have to know these things. The good thing is that they generally only ask 5 types of questions. They're going to ask a lot more, but the majority of the questions are going to come down to subject-verb agreement. The second is pronoun-noun agreement. The third is going to be idiomatic expression. And idioms are just something that's specific to language, right? So a language. So let's take, I'm on cloud 10. Yeah, clearly someone that didn't grow up in the US, because the expression is cloud 9. There's no reason, honestly, that it can't be I'm cloud on 3 or I'm cloud on 13. Someone decided to pick cloud 9 as an arbitrary number. So that's an idiomatic expression. The other will be parallel structure. Running, jumping, and skipped. And then the number 5 is subject verb agreement, pronoun agreement, idiom, predicate, ambiguity. And ambiguity is, Joan and Jake were both raised their hands, and one of them decided it wasn't right. Which one did one refer to, right? So there's that ambiguity. Now, of course, that's really simple the way I just put it, but the SAT is so much more devious at the way they do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to focus in on these 5 things. Now, the grammar passage, the grammar notes that I have for you come from my SAT and ACT grammar book. It's the Cliff Notes, essentially, of grammar. So let's download the SAT student version, and then you go ahead and download the SAT teacher one, the solutions one. Move this one over here. And then we're going to open this one. And hold on one second. I got to convert my thing here. Of course, I can't find it now. Okay, you're going to lose me for a second. Okay. So, student version. All right, here we go. So here is, like I said, this is really the Cliff Notes to a grammar book. And I'm not going to go through everything because that would be just mean. But what I want to do is I want to highlight the things that I really want you to focus in on. This concept about verb tenses. So there's a lot of confusion on verb tenses. It's very possible to have multiple verb tenses in a single sentence. Yesterday I worked, today I didn't, tomorrow I will. That's grammatically correct and says it all. So people will say, oh, it's a verb or a tense shift. No, that's fine as long as it's clear. That's a combination of ambiguity and the subject verb agreement in a sense. So you just have to be certain that you don't make that mistake that, hey, just because I have different verb tenses, it's a mistake. You do not need to know simple past versus past progressive versus perfect, present perfect and past progressive. Because honestly, I don't know either. I had to take that and rewrite that from a book because I didn't know what it was. I mean, I know what it is, but I couldn't identify it. It's not really ever asked, so don't worry about it. But understand there are different verb forms. Now, you want to get 1,500 and above? You probably would be better, right? Because we need test mastery. So if we want mastery, we got to know everything. The other thing to think about is that each one of these, oops, whoa, that was bad. So from our Spanish or French, right? If you took one of those languages, you took a Romance-based language, you know that we conjugate verbs. We conjugate verbs in English too, but you've just done it since birth, so you don't really think about it too much. But this is essentially what you need to be thinking about. Today, die, yesterday, died, I have died. All of these things have different things, different forms. You don't need to memorize this, but be aware that there's a difference. So hung would be objects. The painting was hung. The person was not hung, the person was hanged, right? That's one that will sometimes get people confused. Lie and lay, we'll talk about that in a second. But just to recognize, yep, hey, this is this different chart and that's all I got to worry about. Let's go to the next page. Special circumstances, conditional and subjunctive. Some really great high-level grammar. Don't worry about it. Agreement, very important. We have to recognize that the SAT wants to confuse us in certain areas. And one of the ways that they're going to try and confuse us is in agreement. And the way that they're going to try and confuse us is say, hey, the committee. Well, is the committee singular or plural? Committee singular. And there will be other things, what I call 2-for-1s, that will also be singular. Rock and roll is singular because it is a concept. Now, rock and roll can be separated just to rock, but it couldn't be roll, right? Yeah, roll is my favorite type of music. No, that would just simply be dumb. It's rock and roll, except you guys are too cool. You're not going to say rock and roll. I don't even know what would be cool for you now. But anyway, that's that concept. Each and every book, right? So again, we're taking and combining. Subjects with conjunctions. 2 singular subjects linked with and are plural. So Paul and Jim, those would be 2 different things. There will be one that we'll come across in a second that if we use or, then the verb goes to the geographically closest noun. So something to keep in mind. Here we go. Jim or his friends are going. Neither his friends nor Jim is going. So if I have Paul and Jim, that's plural. But if I use or, sorry, it's the one that's closest to the noun. So Jim or his friends, well, that would be plural. And then neither his friends nor Jim, therefore it is. Okay? When we talk about agreement, Jessica and Jennifer are looking for a summer job. Of course we know what that means. But I love to say, and I'm an English teacher, so I say this, I fall on my own sword, that we English teachers are the dumbest people on the face of the earth. And you know why? It's because we would get confused as to what this means. Jessica and Jennifer are looking for a summer job. Oh my God, they can't be looking for the same job, right? English teachers get all flustered and in a tizzy. Sure they can. That's the way we speak. We know what it means. But standard written English, which is what this is, standard written English, means that it has to be specific. So Jessica and Jennifer are looking for summer jobs because it has to agree. The number of jobs has to agree with the number of subjects. So the grammar section is the second section. You've just had that nasty long reading section. Then all of a sudden they throw this one where you got to go faster than a problem a minute, and you're going to miss something like this. So again, that's why I can't highlight everything, but I can just highlight the ones that you should not miss. Every student should keep personal belongings in the lockers provided? Nope, it's correct. Every student should keep personal belongings in the locker provided. So it's student, and then so therefore it's got to be individual locker. This is why people hate English teachers, because it's that simple. We all knew what it meant, but the English teacher gets all flustered when that goes out. We sent 5 invitations off in an envelope. We all pretty much know that we sent individual invitations off in an envelope. Nope, it's got to be envelopes because it didn't match up to the number of invitations. That's agreement error. So the easiest way to spot an agreement error is to cross off adjectives and adverbs and prepositional phrases. So really, I can tell you that I can do almost everything on this grammar test by just eliminating prepositional phrases. I eliminate prepositional phrases, it's so much easier to find things. Because prepositional phrases cannot influence subject-verb agreement, noun-pronoun agreement, parallel structure. They're really the bane of all existence for the SAT. So when you, after you read a thing, after you read a sentence, you can just all of a sudden look and go, okay, let's start crossing off some prepositional phrases because I see that that's not going to be essential. You can go through and understand all this, but again, if you just learn to get rid of prepositional phrases, everything else gets so much easier. One other thing just to remember, collective nouns are usually considered singular. All right? Now, just because I'm such a wonderful, nice person, I have given you a bunch of pronouns here that will be singular or plural. Someone, somebody, something, everyone, everybody, no one, nobody, those are all singular. Plural would be several, few, both, many. And sadly, you kind of have to, this is one of those things that you need to, I don't want to say memorize, but you need to be pretty fluent in this. You need to recognize when something is singular and when something is plural. I don't have a cute little trick for you to how to remember, other than you just have to spend the time with that. Pronoun case, that's generally not too hard. Subject pronouns, object pronouns, you can read through all this. These are all things that you've been doing literally since 4th grade, but they just have a name for it. Don't memorize, oh, this is what this is, what this is. Go through and just recognize, refresh your memory, right? Call it out from the deep, dark recesses of your brain, what works. All right. You can study gerunds, but I want to spend a little more time on who and whom, because it usually is a problem for people and there's an easy fix. So who and whom give people a lot of difficulty. So all I suggest is that you just create a little 3-word sentence. Who hit whom? Right? This is the action, so you can kind of go through. And then who hit he? No, who hit him? So if I can use him, then I would use whom. Him hit her? Him, no, he, right? So it's easy if I just, because I can remove all the prepositional phrases, it's really simple to take this simple little three-word sentence and then apply that to everything I need to know. And then if you really wanted to, your subject verb, your subject pronouns, you could go back and you could substitute in for who, and all your object pronouns you could substitute for whom. But for the most part, people know he, she, him, her, and they can just substitute those in. And who and whom should really not be much of an issue if every time you see whom, you just substitute it out with him or her, and every time you see who, you substitute it with he or she. And by doing that, it makes almost all of the who, whom problems on the SAT go away. And it actually also makes most of the problems in your writing go away. You're probably not sophisticated enough to be using a ton of who and whom. So until you get that sophisticated, stay away from that, right? I think that'll be easy for you. Ambiguity. So this is again what gets English teachers all flustered. Ambiguity, when referring to two or more people, be sure the referents are clear. So what's wrong? Mary told Alicia she would certainly do well on the TOEFL. We probably know who meant was going to do well. But the English teacher gets confused and says, I don't really know. So we have to be very clear with who the referent is. So the right way would be Mary told Alicia that Mary would certainly do well, or Mary told Alicia that Alicia would do well, right? Just something that simple. So again, here's a long list of how to spot pronoun errors. Now, I have to do this because some English teacher is going to look at it online and go, no, he left out step 4 and 5 in my ability to condense. That's way too complicated. You're never going to look at that. I know that. So what you're looking to do is to avoid ambiguity. Step number 9. That's the easiest way to spot pronoun errors. Avoid ambiguity. Everything else are all for people who would complain about my methods not being complete enough. I'm telling you, as someone who takes and does a lot of practice problems, if I just avoid ambiguity, I'm doing pretty well on this test. Redundancy. Oh, okay. Yeah, this is a good one. This is phrasing. So it's a shame. I really enjoyed the SAT essays. I do think they have a purpose. And one of the reasons why I enjoyed them is because I enjoyed reading your writing. And sometimes your writing was very, very comical, because in an effort to try and pack more words in, you often stuffed more things in, right? To make it sound better. The isolated child who was all alone cried and wept during the dark night. Taken from a student's writing. Now, what's wrong with that? Well, isolated and alone are the same thing, so that's redundant. Cried and wept. Same thing. So I affectionately call that a double modifier. And high school students, more than college students, I've tutored plenty of college students in my life. High school students, it's like 100 times to 1 the high school students jam in double modifiers. Because if you have to write a 1,000-word essay, if I can jam in 50 double modifiers, I've saved a bunch of words. But on the SAT, you'll get yourself in trouble. So the easiest way to write that, the lonely child cried during the night. Now remember, the isolated child who was all alone and cried and wept during the dark night, well, that's really bad writing. It's also long. Shorter, more concise writing is often better and correct. So when you're seeking answer choices, always be looking for something that's shorter and more concise. Okay? She protested against the war. I think you would say that and never realize that there was anything wrong, but protest means to speak out against. So she protested the war. You would not need to double modify that. This one is so bad, I don't even need to really go over it. If you might possibly find time maybe to look this over, I would appreciate it. That's the way we speak. You're trying to soften the blow when you're trying to ask me to read over your essay or do something for you, kind of hem and haw, but in writing it needs to be shorter and more precise. Okay, the last one. The old worn out coat with many patches was still a favored, prized piece of clothing to him. Double modifier, double modifier, double modifier. The worn patch coat was still a favorite of his. Right answer. Okay, misplaced modifiers. My favorite. And the reason that they're misplaced is because the College Board, right, the SAT, makers of the SAT, are really good at throwing things in there that separate the distance from subject and verb, pronoun and noun. And the further away that those things become, the more likely you are to find a mistake. Driving down Highway 101, the rain pelted my car. So the sentence reads as if the rain was driving down. We probably would write that. We would say that, and we would all know, but that's not correct. So the correct way, the rain pelted my car as I drove down Highway 101. The referent, it just has to be more clear. Again, this is why people hate this section. Being in Henry's pocket, I could not use the radio to get help. Jake and Noah will be the first to say that I'm not very tall, but I'm probably bigger than being able to fit into Henry's pocket. So therefore, that would be incorrect. They were looking for a man with one eye named Leonard. So was the man named Leonard, or did he name his eye the only one that he had use of, Leonard? Right? That's what that one means. And my aunt enjoyed the concert who had bought the tickets early. So it seems as if the concert had bought the tickets. We've all written this. We've all said these things. But again, they're all wrong. Parallelism. He likes swimming, jogging, and to skate. Nope. Swimming, jogging, and skating. You're like, Mike, I'm not going to miss that. That's so simple. Yeah, look, there's nothing in between. There's nothing in between there. But when you start sticking prepositional phrases and gerunds and you start cramming other junk into the sentence, running, swimming, jogging, skating, they could be 10 words apart. And now all of a sudden, it's easy to make that mistake. Let's go to sentence fragments. I generally find that students do okay on fragments. That doesn't seem to be a horrible issue for you. They to the beach, right? Obviously missing something. Wanted to stay in bed. Yeah, she wanted to stay in bed. You're not going to make a mistake on fragments nearly as often as you're going to make a mistake as on a run-on sentence or a comma splice. If you make a mistake on a fragment, it's generally because it was a typo when you write, right? I really believe that people know, oh yeah, that doesn't have a subject or that doesn't have a verb. But run-on sentence and comma splices are so nasty, and I'm prone to that as well. You can't do this on the SAT, but I would highly recommend that you get a Grammarly subscription. I don't know if it's like $100 a year. Absolutely the world's best thing. The downside, my grammar without Grammarly is horrific now, because for the last several years, I just let Grammarly fix all my errors. And it's really good. It catches stuff that I go, oh man, I can't believe that would be a problem. But yeah, now that I think about it, it is. So Grammarly is awesome. However, it really makes you reliant upon that and does cause you errors. So it's your English paper or your history paper that you have time to write with Grammarly will be so much better, but your in-class essays could very well suffer. Okay, double negatives. Generally, we don't have too much of a problem here. He does not have nothing, right? I think we know that that's not going to be correct. I can't hardly wait for summer. Maybe something you would say, maybe something you would text, but probably not something that you would write on your own. Let's go to illogical comparisons. So, again, a frustrating portion here. I enjoy reading the stories of Edgar Allan Poe more than I enjoy reading Stephen King. So you can't compare those two things because they're both unlike objects. One are the stories of Edgar Allan Poe, and the other is Stephen King. Now, mind you, I'm up to like 20,000 students that I've personally taught, and there are certainly kids that I probably would enjoy the stories of Edgar Allan Poe than some of the kids that I've taught. That's not politically correct to say. I will probably not edit that and we'll get in trouble. I'll probably get canceled at some point in my life for that statement, but that's okay. Bring it on. So we're on this thing that you have to be consistent, that if I'm going to say the stories of Edgar Allan Poe, then I have to say the stories of Stephen King. And it has to be that consistency. With pronouns, Peter is more generous than her. Well, the correct way would be Peter is more generous than she. And there's this implied is, right? Ask yourself, or just put in more than she is. And that will help you out with that. I know, super exciting lesson, but this is grammar. Okay, degrees. So if you have 2 things, it's less. If you have 3 things, it's least, or 3 plus. If you have 2 things, it's fewer. If you have 3 things, it's fewest, right? So it's and most. 2 things is more or most. I have 2 children. I like my, who am I going to say? I like my older one, just so this can get back to the younger one. I like my older one most. No, I only have 2. I like my older one more. It's not my oldest child, it's my older child. If I had 3 kids, then it would be my youngest or oldest or middlest. Just see if someone's listening. Yeah, so it'd be youngest or oldest. But if I only have 2, right, it's younger or older. The easiest way to remember this is I'm between a rock and a hard place. That's an expression. And so I'm not among a rock and a hard place. I'm between a rock and a hard place. Okay, so between is for 2, and then among would be more than everything else. That's the only trick I got for that one. Irregular adjectives you can go through on your own. It's not that much. Absolutes. Oh, all right. This is a good one. The line is straighter. This line is straighter than that line. Nope, a line is straight, so it's straight. If something is unique, it's it. You don't need to modify unique. Unique is in itself unique. You don't need to say the more unique or most unique. However, we say that in daily conversation all the time. My God, that is the most unique thing I've ever seen. Nope, that's unique. That's the way that's all you need to say. Period of time. That's redundant because period means time. So that's one on the SAT you'll miss out on too. So again, just nasty little stupid things. Okay, usage. I want to just highlight these. These are not covered a great deal, but what I have learned is that making you aware of such things helps you out a great deal. I'm sorry, I stare and I see all your faces and you're looking at the screen, and Rylan, all I'm looking at is a fan. And I keep looking over and it keeps distracting me. It's kind of cool the way the light is, Rylan, but I know you're there. I wasn't worried about that, but I just keep focusing in on that fan. All right.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good. You're good. Like I said, I looked over and it just caught my attention weird. All right, so these are usage words. So these are things that you just have to recognize can be a little different. So acceptable, let's do this one. Acceptable to is not acceptable by. Is this acceptable to your parents? It's not acceptable by your parents. It's acceptable to your parents. Don't blame me, right? It's the rules of grammar. Accept and accept. So accept is to receive and accept is to leave out. This is very common for foreign, I would say English is a second language. advice and advice. So if I'm going to advise you, it's a noun. I'm seeking some advice, and I see that English, where English is a second language, people will often confuse those two. Affect and effect. Don't feel bad. I missed this one the other day. Grammarly picked it up for me, and I double checked it because I could, no way this is wrong, and I was wrong. So affect and effect can sometimes be very challenging. Affect is a verb meaning to influence, and effect is a noun meaning the result. All right, so the tragedy affected me greatly. That's with an A. The effect was stunning in the movie. Aggravate. Aggravate means to make worse. Annoy means to bother. So if you have a bad knee, you aggravate it. Right? You don't annoy your bad knee. You don't irritate your bad knee. Annoy and irritate are what my neighbor would do to me. He wouldn't necessarily aggravate me. That would be to make things worse. He would irritate me. Right, Jake? Allusion and illusion. So if I'm going to allude to something, it's a reference to something that maybe I'm going to read. I'm going to allude to a character in Steinbeck's book. That's an allusion. An illusion is what a magician does. Capital and capitol, right? The capital can be means good or chief place, the main place, or the capital refers to a building such as the state where the state legislature meet. Simple little things that you'll get going too quickly, you'll confuse. All right, so fewer or less. Let's spend a little time on this one because you have been trained your entire life wrong. When you go into a grocery store, is it 9 items or fewer or 9 items or less? What, Emma? Oh, okay. I thought you were saying something. So when I go into a store, it always says 9 items or less. And as a grammar teacher, I go, oh God, you got it wrong. It's fewer because we can count them. Less are things that we can't count. I want fewer jelly beans or less jelly beans. I want fewer because I can count them. I want fewer scrambled eggs or less scrambled eggs. I want less because I can't count them. I want less mashed potatoes. So all those people in the store, they've been training students for their entire lives incorrect. And so I have this urgency that makes certain that you get it correct. I haven't seen this one in years on the SAT, but I see it in writing all the time. There's no irregardless. It's not a word. It's just regardless. Stationary and stationary. So with an A means not moving. With the E is the letter, and that's how I remember it. So stationary with an E, that's the same one that would be in letter, and that's my mnemonic device for remembering that one. Okay, so here's what I would like you to do. There are way too many problems to do here. So let's just take this first page. And I would like you to do, I need to cover lie and lay. Yeah, I need to cover lie and lay. This rule works 99% of the time. Okay, maybe 98. And there will be one time where you will miss it. What does a chicken do? Does a chicken lie an egg or lay an egg? Chicken lays an egg. So lay means to place. I'm going to lay this rag down. Now, if I'm tired, I'm going to lie down. Except if it was yesterday, then I would lay down. So that's the only time for the majority of your life, right? Yes, there might be a past perfect subjunctive, blah, 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 that it's going to violate that rule. But again, rewrite it. But for the most part, people lie down, you lay things down, unless this is the past tense. And then it's I lay down. Okay? All right, with that said, I now want you to do the odds on this page up to, just do the odds on this extra practice page. What page is this? 55. Just do the odds, please. Okay, go through. I'll give you 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Okay. Let's go through the answers, and then we'll finish, and then I'll have a personal request. So after we finish, I'll stop recording, then I have a personal request for you, and we'll continue. All right, so let's go through here. So number one, yesterday I lay down. So I kind of gave that one away. I should have done lay significantly earlier. Most people would miss that, but then I give it to you right before, so I screwed up. Number three, if I were going with you, I'd be happy. Number five, last year he would have spoken. So again, these are all the basic foundations of this entire grammar test are all really found in this simple tense drill, subject-verb agreement drill, pronoun agreement, pronoun case, parallelism drill. These are the things that are taught, or excuse me, that are challenged on almost the majority of the test. And you're thinking, well, it's never going to be that easy. Yes, it is. It really is that easy if you go through and eliminate all the unnecessary words. Prepositional phrases, gerunds, double modifiers. You get rid of all that stuff, all of a sudden the problem reads very simply. Subject-verb agreement, subject-verb drill. None of us is. So, of us, prepositional phrase, get rid of that. None, singular, takes a singular verb. Number 3, Mary, Joe, and Beth, 2 of the members of the team are. Okay, of the members of the team. So some people will put is because they see team right there. But of the members and of the team, prepositional phrase, cross it off. Now it's just 2 are the best. Very simple. Number 5, either Mark or Pete, 2 of the nicest guys I know, was. Remember either, right? You then take everything that is going to be geographically desirable. So that's the either or, neither nor concept, that when you have that, you take the pronoun or the noun closest to the verb. If it's subject-verb agreement, you take the full subject, but when it's either or neither nor, you take the one that's closest to it. Pronoun agreement drill. Each of the women fought for her rights because it refers back to each. Number 3, if the guidance department tells you to do that, it must be crazy because guidance department is singular. When anyone who goes to Montreal will feel as if he is, or she is, or a variety of pronouns are, anyone, so we're referring to anyone here. Pronoun case. I want to give the present to Paul and him. So, just substitute. Get rid of Paul. I want to give the present to he. No, but to Paul and he kind of sounds like it could work. But if we get rid of Paul and we just put to he, now we know that doesn't work. After going to the city, Mary and she wanted to live there. Well, let's get rid of this and just say her wanted to live there. Her want to live there. No, it's she wants to live there. And then number 5, if you and me or you and I take this test, we'll both do well. If I take this test, I'll do well, right? You just redo it. All right. This parallelism drill. So underline the part of the sentence that's not parallel and correct it. There's a lot of ways to correct this one, but just recognize Joanna read the book, summarized its contents, and submitted it to the teacher. I don't remember what was the original way. Joanna read the book, summarized the concept, and submitting it to the teacher. So we can see that violated that parallel structure way. The peer counselor listened intently and compassionately, right? Intently and compassionately, that's got to be in sync. And then number 5, calling the Screaming Blue Banshees the best new band film is like calling my sister a good-looking girl. The best-looking girl, sorry. So the way that was to call the Screaming Blue Banshees the best new band in town, what's wrong with that? To call the Screaming Blue Banshees the best new band in town is like calling my sister the best-looking girl. Calling... Oh, I got you. Sorry. To call obviously needs to be calling because it's calling here, calling there. right? Sorry, I even wrote it and I even forgot. Okay, do we have any questions on this first phase of grammar? Because we get to do more grammar next week. Yay, so much fun. So out of the 3 sections, math is rule-based, grammar is rule-based, reading is more knowledge-based, right? So if you're going to study anything, study something with a rule that you can then take and use that same rule multiple times. When you do that, you're maximizing the amount of time that you have remaining before the test. So you want to become a better reader. Oh, I would love for you to become a better reader. You don't have time. Now, you can maximize some of your strategies. You can do some things to help improve that. But in reality, we're not going to make a dramatic increase in your overall ability to read. Again, I can clue you in on a few things and help you get some points, but I can't dramatically shift that reading ability in the short period of time. Contact me for reading. Yeah, I can do a great job over 2 months. So then it becomes math or grammar are my rule-based things. What I have found is that I can get students to make these gigantic increases in grammar when they focus in on those 5 things. Now, you can't make mistakes. You've got to be really good with those 5 things, but you study those handful of things, your grammar score generally will improve more so than your math score. And the reason being, you do math 5 hours a week, and you've been taking math yearly, but you more or less stopped studying grammar a number of years ago. And so those skills have kind of atrophied or eroded. So if you're going to do anything, I think in the shortest amount of time, grammar is a really nice way to go through, because you can catch a bunch of small things that you go, yeah, I did know that. I don't think any of that stuff is really teaching you anything new, but it's hopefully refreshing. Something that you've learned in the past. Okay, any questions?